Hi everyone, my name is Kerington, Alston, and welcome back. So today we're going to talk about what to do during a storm, right? We all have storms in our lives, and we want to know what to do during them. So what is a storm exactly? I'll read you the actual definition. It's a violent disturbance of the atmosphere, and that is talking about a literal storm, a weather, right? Today we're going to talk about metaphorically a storm in our lives. So not literal storms, but the interesting thing is that there are a lot of comparisons with how you would handle a real storm and how to handle storms in your life. So what greater example do we have of how to handle a storm than Jesus himself? So I'm going to actually read from a scripture passage, Matthew chapter 8, verse 24. And suddenly behold, and by the way, this is Jesus with his disciples while this storm is happening. Matthew chapter 8, verse 24, and suddenly behold, there arose a violent storm on the sea, so that the boat was being covered up by the waves, but he was sleeping. And the he that they're talking about is Jesus, okay? Jesus was sleeping. So he chose during the storm to rest. He just decided, you know what, I guess it didn't bother him that much. I'm going to sleep through it. Because to him, hey, I'll just go, I'm not going to let it disturb me. I'm going to rest. And that's kind of a really great perspective to look at, that when storms come in our life, handle what you can handle, and then rest in God. Rest and just kind of calm yourself and let him take control. And so I think that's what Jesus did. Jesus said, I'm going to rest. There's a storm. I'm not going to fret about it. I'm not going to panic. And he went to sleep. I think that's kind of cool that while all this is going on, he decided to rest. Now, verse 25. And they went and awakened him, saying, Lord, rescue and preserve us. We are perishing. And so they woke Jesus up. They're like, rescue us. There's a storm going on. You're sleeping. We're perishing. If they said perishing, that means dying. They're speaking that they're going to die. It wasn't so much that, oh my gosh, there's a storm and I just ended. They're literally putting out there that they are dying. So this is serious stuff. And actually, if you kind of research this a little bit more, that storm wasn't like your typical thunderstorm. There were like hurricane-like winds. So it was kind of scary. And that's the thing, is the way that the disciples handled it is kind of human nature. I think if people handle the storm that way, no one would look at you like you're crazy. They just say, I get it. They have Jesus there, and then their thought process, they're thinking, he's sleeping. There's a storm going on. We need to wake him up. Now, let's see how Jesus handled this. And he said to them, why are you timid and afraid, O you of little faith? I think what was going on with Jesus is he's thinking, why are you waking me up when you could handle the storm? You could speak to the storm. Why are you waking me up? And what we tend to do sometimes, if we're not careful, is when we have, even not just storms, but even things in life in general, we get upset if other people are calm, who are going through the same thing we are, and we want them to panic with us. We want them to be anxious with us. And that's just not good. And we have to be careful that we're not like that we're not angry at people. Like, how come you're not angry or frustrated or anxious or fearful like I am? I want you to join in this with me. And Jesus is thinking, hey, you have the power. You could speak to the storm. You don't have to wake me up. Why don't you have faith? Why are you fearful? It is a storm. And if you think about, Jesus is on the boat. He wasn't going to let them die. But that just even shows you, there's a whole deeper lesson we can get into that. But that just shows you how faith works, right? Because so many of us have even seen miracles in our life. And yet, when storms come, we still panic. I've seen these miracles. Why in the world is fear still there? Why would I still be afraid when I've seen such miracles? So when you think about like that, you can kind of understand why the disciples were still fearful, even though Jesus himself is on the boat. But guess what? That's the thing about faith, is you have to keep building up your faith, right? Faith comes by hearing by the word of God. You got to keep getting that word in you. You got to keep getting that good teaching in you. You need to get teaching from your pastor. Now there's a pandemic. You need to go online and get those teachings into your spirit. You need to pray. You need to build up that faith. You've got to build it up. And there's so many different tools I won't go into now of ways to build your faith up, whether praying in the spirit or things like that, where you got to build, it's like a muscle, you know, you got to work on that faith. and so that's the thing about faith, is even if you've seen great miracles, sometimes you can still, if you're not careful, you'll get into that doubting thing again. And I think sometimes some of us veteran Christians, we think we don't have to keep working on that, but we do. We have to keep making sure that our faith is strong. And sometimes you have to remind yourself of old miracles. Like, okay, if I've seen that, then I know Jesus can handle this storm, and I know I can handle it. I know I can speak to this storm. So he asks, why are you afraid, O you of little faith? And so we have to go deep into ourselves and wonder, where is that fear coming from? Why am I afraid? Let's get to the root of this. Where does that come from? I must not be building my faith like I'm supposed to. I'm probably building something else, and it's not faith, it's fear. And so you need to feed your faith, okay? And you need to get to the root of, why are you fearful? And we have to also be honest with ourselves and call it what it is. Sometimes I've been guilty of overreacting in situations and not owning that where that comes from. That's fear. That's a lack of faith. I'll give you examples. My parents live pretty far away from me now, so every once in a while, sometimes my mom will randomly call like a little bit later than normal, like 10, and immediately, like 10 o'clock at night, immediately fear, gets in me. I'm like, oh gosh, what happened? Did something happen? Did an accident happen? Or, someone in the hospital? And I have to own that that's where that comes from. That's fear. That's a lack of faith, because that's not a normal reaction. Now, if I'm lifted up in pride, I'll just say, oh no, that's not because of a lack of faith. And I'll try to put on other things. But at the end of the day, that's really where, that's the root of a lot of our emotions. That's the root of anxiety and dread and fearfulness, all that stress. But really, the root of all of that is a lack of faith. And we have to be honest about where that comes from. And then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea. So he got up and he rebuked the wind, the waves, the sea, all that stuff. He rebuked the storm. He got up and he rebuked the storm. And so, I think about in Mark, where we learn that we're supposed to speak to the mountain and cast that mountain to the sea. You have to speak. You have to open your mouth and speak. A lot of times we go through things in life and we're just kind of thinking it, and it's like wishful thinking, and we're hoping, and hoping is great. I just taught on my previous message was on hope, but now we have to take it to a new level. We have to open our mouths and we have to make declarations. We have to decree what we want. If you got an issue in your life you don't like, you can speak to that. Now, I think something's really interesting. Jesus, I don't know. Jesus probably would have slept through the whole thing because it didn't bother him that much. And I think that's sometimes how we can handle storms in our lives. Sometimes we have storms in our lives and you know what? We can just ignore them and just stay focused. And then other times, you may say, no, I don't want to kind of ignore it or sleep. I'm going to rebuke this and then I'll sleep. I'm going to rebuke it and then I rest. And so you can rebuke storms in your life. And you've got to speak, though. It will not work with just, using your mind. This isn't some type of, action figure type thing where we just use our minds and hope that things happen. No, you have to open your mouth and you have to speak. If you have storms in your life that you don't like, you bind that up in the name of Jesus. You have to speak against it. All right. And there was a great and wonderful calm, a perfect peacefulness, right? So that's that's a great ending to this story, essentially, is that there was a calm and a peace came. And that can happen in our lives. That's the thing about storms, they're not supposed to last long. And guess what? If you don't like them, they can end as soon as you want them to end. And by speaking to it, and then you can have peace. All right. But guess what? You got to do the work. This won't work if you have a woe is me mentality, or if you like to throw pity parties. No, You can't do that during the storm. That is not the time to panic. That is not the time to fret. That is the time to kind of get strategic. And you know, when I listen to the story, I can imagine Jesus is sleeping. They wake him. He gets annoyed because they don't have faith. He says something to them about that, addresses them. And he goes out and he speaks to it. And the storm ends, and you know, that's it. And so, and that's what you do. When the storms come in your life, you speak to that. You kind of have to go into like fight mode a little bit, in a sense of, all right, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to rebuke it. And I imagine that Jesus wasn't like passive with it, like, oh, storm, just go away. That he was like, storm, go. You know, he spoke to that thing. And sometimes when you have storms in your life, it's good almost to get a little bit of righteous indignation, right? You know, not so much anger, but just a little bit of, you know what, no more. No more of this. I'm about to fight this. We're not having this anymore. I'm going to speak to this thing. It's going to be cast into the sea. I'm not going to doubt in my heart. Okay, that's a mark. I'm going to speak against this. We're going to end this once and for all. I don't want this storm, because storms are difficult times. We don't want them. And depending on your personality, man, I'll tell you, I have a type A personality in terms of my scheduling, like the way I order my life, not so much aesthetically. Like, I'm not that type of person who's like, oh, this book has to be here. I don't really, but in terms of how I structure my life, right? So I really don't like storms. When storms come in my life and difficult times come, I do not like it, because I'm thinking, hold up. I had an idea of how my day was going to go, and this was not part of it. And so instead of getting, you know, I'm guilty of sometimes fretting and getting anxious. Sometimes I have to say, you know what, let's turn this around. I'm not about to be fearful. Now I'm annoyed. Now I'm annoyed at the devil. And so I'm about to get my word out. I'm about to get on my knees and pray, and we're about to deal with this. And once I deal with it, after I deal with it, I'm going to rest. I'm going to let God handle it. I'm going to do whatever I need to do, and I'm going to let God handle the rest. And I'm not about to fret. I'm not about to worry. And so you kind of almost have to change your mindset. You can't get frazzled, you know, when storms come. You have to say, we are not dealing with this right now. That's it. Because I had a way I wanted my day to go, my week to go, and this is not part of it. Okay? And so I really just want to encourage you all that when the storm comes in your life, hey, there are things you can do. You can rest and just sleep through it, or you can speak to it and then go back to resting. And whatever you do not, if other people are kind of in the storm with you, don't try to discourage them. Don't get angry if they're not anxious like you are. Don't get angry if they're not fretting like you are. In fact, instead of, you know, trying to combat that, hey, let that inspire you. Don't you ever be the one to throw people off, okay? You build up, and then also you have to know why are you fretting? Why do you have little faith? Where is that coming from? You build up your faith, okay? You do what you need to do. I really hope that encourages you all today. I really, really appreciate you watching this. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Please comment below if you have any questions or comments. I'd love for you to put that below. And if you have any just questions or subjects you'd like me to deal with, feel free to message me. I have my email listed below in the description, or you can message me on my various social media apps. Go ahead and do that. I'd love to answer that for you. If you have any video topics you'd like me to do or suggestions, go ahead. And literally, I can talk about anything. I really can. So if you have any type, even if it doesn't seem so churchy or Christian-like or anything like that, you can ask me, and I may do a video on it. Sure. Yeah. So yeah, if you have any video ideas or anything like that, I'd love for you to let me know. Please hit the red subscribe button, and please share this with someone, especially someone who may be going through a storm in their life. All right, you all, thank you so much for watching.